You know, I want to get to my guy, Tone. We'll do a little more of this as we talk to Tone here. I'll bring him on here now.
Big Sills, how we feeling, sir?
Good.
Awesome.
You know what, Tone? I'll tell you what I'm disappointed at.
Oh, man.
Since when does it take courage to say something when you're the captain of your team?
It should be expected, right?
I guess so.
Shouldn't be something that you get credit for. Should be something that you it just is.
Aren't the players saying a lot without saying a lot?
Of course they are. They have been for weeks. Of course they are. But here's the thing. They're in an environment where you want to make sure you want to make sure your key fob still works to get into the building. So one thing I will say, man, Howie Roseman does an amazing job keeping that building as buttoned up as you've ever seen, really. You would think they move like they're running a legit Fortune 500 company for real. They make sure there's no leaks. You know, they're ran like a pharmaceutical.
It's like Fort Knox.
Like they're ran like a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
no secrets.
Like not just no secrets, but also you better know how to keep one too.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like the Wuhan lab. The last month, something leaked out, man, and guess what? It's killing the inspiration of the team right now.
Yeah, and I wish I could say with absolute confidence that this team is going to turn things around in the playoffs, but I can't assume that. What kind of voice would I be if I just outright just lied about how I feel about this team right now? All I ever do is try to tell the truth.
Tone, do me a favor, man. Stop saying they're going to clean house, because they're going to hire Brian Johnson and Sean Desai again. Then you know who they're going to do? They're going to clean house and hire Brian Johnson and Sean Desai again. It's not going to change.
But doesn't it have to end at some point?
Okay. All right.
Right? Like,
okay.
I mean,
that's owner stepping in.
At some point, doesn't it have to, like at some point, and I totally understand your premise, right? They have a way of doing things, but doesn't it have to come to an end at some point?
2 years, 5 wins.
Get this. Because it's funny you say that.
Because 4 wins fired Doug.
Yeah, 4 wins fired Doug. That was his breaking point.
Fire Howie.
And 4 wins fired Andy. I think in Andy's final season, they went 4-12 or something.
They may not fire him. They may bring the kid in 2 years because he'll be 30 then. And they may, I'm telling you, Tone, the thing I said earlier, that may be the greatest thing to happen for the Eagles. Even if the kid is not qualified, at least Howie will have to answer to somebody in the building. And the father's going to listen to the kid.
Are you talking about the Julian, right?
Yeah. Maybe they elevate him to president. And because again, then he has his name on it. And if Howie Roseman, hey, dude, Howie Roseman deserves a raise for the contract that he put together for Jalen Hurts. But on the same token, he deserves to be fired for the way he built the Eagle defense this year.
What's so funny?
So take one of those away from him and stick to his strength.
I'm willing to bet. This is going to sound crazy, and this is so far in the future, but I'm willing to bet the moment Julian Lurie takes over, Howie doesn't last another 5 years past that.
Oh, 5 years? I'd be shocked too.
You know what I mean? I don't see at the moment Julian takes over, I'll be shocked if Howie's here past. From that point, I'll be shocked if he's here 5 years beyond that. Because I've thought about this, the moment Julian's name started, moving through the network and everything over the past couple seasons, I thought about this. I said, how would Howie Roseman feel taking orders from some little whippersnapper?
He would be okay with it.
You think he would?
Yeah. You know why?
I don't know if he would last 5 years.
It's his environment with the owners that they've set up that way, where if he went along, got along, okay, at the end of the day, as long as he's in a meeting, as long as he's in a meeting with those two guys constantly, he's going to manage that.
So you think he would be emboldened if Julian took over? because I'm operating under the assumption Jeffrey's going to step away entirely. And
you said it earlier, dude. He's not a better GM. He's a better conniver.
Yeah, well, yeah. What I was saying that the dude
ain't a better GM, Tone.
He's gotten away with a lot of things. He hasn't really even Jeff said it, right? He's been very up and down and has not had a consistent trajectory his entire career. And
why is that, you think?
He hasn't been able to do that for the simple fact that I said it earlier. Damn, what did I say? He's incapable of deviating from his priors. He can't help but to fall in love with how he's done something, and he's emboldened himself to believe that it's his way is foolproof, when in reality, for example, 2017, so many things happened that led to that Super Bowl that doesn't get talked about enough.
And externally.
Yeah. I'm gonna give the people some real examples. That season, Aaron Rodgers went down for the season with a broken collarbone. He was done. So that means the Packers were a non-threat, and that's when they were hot. He was a non-threat. Secondly, Ezekiel Elliott was suspended for, I believe, 60 to 75% of that season. He didn't come back until the back end of the year for the Cowboys. And historically, Ezekiel Elliott has given us problems. And that was when he was in his prime. So the Cowboys were playing with one arm time behind their back.
And the Saints got upset in that game up in Minneapolis.
And the Saints got upset with a terrible call in Minneapolis. Or no call, however you want to call it. So there were so many things, people don't talk about this enough. At halftime in that Atlanta divisional game, Nick Foles threw a duck, and Keanu Neal could have picked it off. Yeah. But Jackass decided to jump up with his knees, and the ball bounced off his knees instead of landing in his hand. And when it bounced off his knees, Torrey Smith caught it and put them in field goal range to put to add 3 points to the score. So and they beat the Falcons by like 5 points or 3 points, something like that. So my point is, there are so many things that transpired in that season that goes far beyond Howie Roseman's reach. And I think for him to believe that they have this tried and true formula that doesn't deserve to be revamped or revisited is completely egotistical, and it's nonsense. The linebacker position in particular, me and Rob was talking about it earlier. I believe, they've been saying that they have a hard time, or they don't like to invest in that position, right? They don't like to invest in it. That's what they say. You know what I
tweet earlier today?
No, I missed it. But
I tweeted out at 9 o'clock this morning. I go, there can't be a coincidence that Greenlaw and Warner and Queen and Smith are on the two top teams in the AFC and NFC that just secured home field advantage. There can't be a coincidence to that.
It's not a coincidence. Listen, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl and they beat the Chiefs, their linebacker core was on fire. They had Devin White, Levante David, I can go on and on. Those were their two main guys, though.
Young guys, too.
Exactly, young guys. But my point is, though, with Howie Roseman and linebackers, they've been telling us or showing us that they don't invest in the position. What if we've been looking at this all wrong, right? What if they don't invest in the position, not because they don't believe in it? What if they don't invest in it because they know for a fact they suck at evaluating it?
Do you think they'll change their mentality heading into this draft, seeing how other teams have valued the position? Get this. There's no coincidence also that the 49ers have a running back who's got 21 touchdowns, 2,040 yards in total offense from scrimmage, and is going to be second in the MVP. A close vote. Probably Lamar wins it, though.
Because the quarterback.
But he's not even going to play this weekend against the Rams, which, by the way, Wentz is starting, so they're going to win that game. I think the Niners anyway. Do you think that they'll reevaluate how they look at both the running back and linebacker position? Maybe. How about this? Maybe not so much where they value it as the O-line and D-line and corners, but do you think they put more of a value on it at least?
And that's the thing, right? No one's telling them to spend
30%
of the cap on a linebacker.
I'm telling you to go get TJ Edwards.
Get one guy. And then, listen, I would be – I said
stick with Edwards.
Yeah, you could have did that, but that's neither here nor there, right? I said this to Rob earlier, and he agreed. No one's saying that you have to spend the bulk of your cap on your entire
No,
linebacker room.
no.
What we're saying is at least spend some kind of money on one guy, particularly your Mike, and then fill in your off-ball linebackers with maybe some journeyman. Okay, I can roll with that. I believe on every level of your defense, you need to have at least one Pro Bowler if you can. It's hard, but I think you should, or at least at the very least, someone who's competent and does their job at it. Because because when you draft guys, right, you're not especially in the first round, you're not looking for superstars. You're looking for starters.
Correct.
You're looking for starters when you draft. That's all you're looking for.
And from two down, you're looking for depth.
Right, starter and depth. So I believe, especially on the defensive side, on each level, and that's safety, corner, linebacker, D-line, I believe you need to have at least a high quality starter, high competent, or at least 2 to 3 Pro Bowlers within those 4 groups, because that way you have a high margin for error on each level, and you have a high level of accountability. You have guys you can put your trust in. But when you spend so much of your assets on the D line, and then you completely ignore linebacker and safety, and then you think by the grace of God you find a corner, how can you sustain that? They don't have a sustainable defensive formula.
And there lies why Howie Roseman can't be sustainably successful year to year, because of his indecisions and his poor drafts that he combines with each and every single year. And this is why it's a prime example. And Jeff Kerr pointed it out, and it's a perfect example these last 2 years. It's sensational last year, uninspiring this year. This is why, and again, it's the misses in the draft that end up the casualty of this, on why you can't balance it.
They can't evaluate
the linebacker position, right?
It's almost criminal at this point.
Depth. How about this, Tone? To add to your comment, over the last 3 weeks, 2.5 sacks, 15 pressures, 7 quarterback hits. He's the top defensive edge rusher in the last 3 weeks. Do you know who that guy is?
Yeah, I heard you talking about it earlier.
It's Derek Barnett.
Who would have thought, for one? And also,
well, all you have to do is get around a good coach in DeMeco Ryans, and God forbid he gets some decent coaching and put in a position to succeed. That's a complete indictment.
No,
what you're talking about on scheme and not deviating off of what you do. You had a guy in the building that could help Josh Sweat right now if you use them correctly. And people are going, we didn't do anything for 7 years here. Well, shit, dude, how many linebackers have you cut that you've drafted in the first 3 rounds in the last 10, 20 years? You've cut a ton of these guys. I'm going to do that exercise again. I think there's something like 50 corners that they've drafted since 2000. And like 2 have been decent.
Yeah. And, here's the thing, and I'll be honest, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I wasn't a Derek Barnett fan for the longest time. Neither am I. But to your point about the fact that he is able to produce, situations matter.
He's producing. That's all. I'm looking at him producing. I'm not talking about him being whether he's a star or he's going to be a
right.
He's producing, and that's what they need right now. They haven't had a sack in 6 weeks.
Exactly, and that's I think the bigger conversation, like you said, he's producing over there. But the bigger conversation is, how weren't you able to get something out of him? How weren't you able to? And I was one of the people that was saying, I don't care what they do with him, trade him, do whatever. I was on that train because he didn't produce for such a long time. But then you see him all of a sudden producing in Houston, and you got to ask yourself, hold on, wait, were we not maximizing?
I watched him last week, and I was like, that can't. When I saw Barnett, I went, who's that? I didn't realize that, and this guy was cut.
Yeah, he was waived.
I didn't know, and I said, that can't be Derek Barnett. And I text Seth, and I go, Seth, are you watching this guy playing for DeMeco Ryans? He goes, I'm watching that game exactly. He goes, my jaw's on the floor. Dude, he's running around like the guy you thought you drafted. Yeah. I'm with you. Do I think he keeps it up? Nothing lends me to believe he will. However,
you can use that production right now. You can use that
clearly use that production right now
and that depth. So another miscalculation to underestimate how much depth you needed at that position. We got a Giants game coming up, and we haven't talked about it not once this week. Ain't that a shame?
You're not capable. You're not capable right now of talking about that because you've got more internal problems that are bigger right now, and the locker room has been lost. Yeah. The only people that are keeping that thing together are the players. It's not the coaches. It's not the front office. And again, Tone, why is it that Nick Sirianni doesn't have to clarify his Seattle comment, but AJ and Hurts have to clarify their comments? How come the coaches don't have to have a come to Jesus conversation and why you both-faced lied to people? And if you fall on the sword, well, I'm falling on the sword for my players and my coaches. That's not an excuse.
Right.
Why aren't they held accountable? The coach, you know what? I'm convinced completely now that A.J. Brown, and he better be careful too, man, because he's now got a bullseye on him. And these media guys, he feels these media guys are going to be coming to him now. You better watch out there, man. You better draw some lines in the sand here. You better keep those guys on a little bit further away from you because you know what they will? They will turn you into a monster if you're not careful.
It's all about getting views, right?
Don't let them too close to you. They're not your friends.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see how the rest of this plays out because I'm curious to know how they perform on Sunday, knowing everything that's been going on for the past 2-3 weeks, in the media and whatnot. I'm generally curious because I don't know where a team goes from here when you've had this type of collapse, when you don't have confidence in the coaching staff.
Don't talk to them like they're kids.
You can't go but so far with this dynamic.
You're paid millions of dollars. Act like a professional and a man. Go do your job. I don't like hearing people talk about, well, will this send them in this direction or that? Hey, fuck that. You get $15 million a year. Go do your job. I don't want to hear any crying. I don't want to hear any bitching. I don't want to hear any screaming. My job is to go out there and play ball on Sunday and for us to win a ball game. That stuff that goes on upstairs, I have no control of that shit. Go play a ball game. Go do your best. Stop worrying about the noise around you. This is why I have
Is that why you think they're not where they are?
Not being direct with each other.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. Is that why you believe they aren't where they're supposed to be? Do you think there's too much focus on what they can't control?
Yes.
From the players, I mean.
Yes. Yes, because what's happened is they've allowed here. You guys said something earlier, and to me, I think it's more than just not being able to figure out how to dig yourself once you go into a ditch, not how to get yourself out of it because you've been sailing so smooth. I think it's more this. I think it's more that things have been riding so well. The noise has been so light. Nobody has done anything. Everything's been kumbaya. The first sign of failure, you're telling me you do this and you lose 4 or 5 and you have a complete organizational meltdown? Well, then you weren't stable in the first place.
That's a good point.
Because organizations, look at here, let's give the greatest example of it. Look at what Baltimore went through last year. They went through a quarterback who was potentially tanking and now wanting to play because he was pissed off about the way the contract was handled. Did they blow up on him? No. Did they lose their poise? No. They stuck with him, hung with him, only 2 teams. He had frightened so many teams off that only 2 teams had a half-ass interest in Lamar Jackson. Do you know what the Ravens did? Screw that. He's our guy. We're going to get him the best coach. We're going to hire the best players. They were traded for Roquan Smith. They did a great job in free agency. They did a great job in the draft. And look where they are now. They're top of the AFC, and they got an MVP candidate. That's how you dig your way out with culture. Instead, the Eagles, on the other hand, the first sign of failure, that thing's the Titanic. That's not a strong organization, Tone. Strong organizations pull themselves out of trouble when trouble rears its head.
I mean, just
every
think
time
about
they rear their head, 3 years later, they're a 4-win team.
think about the way just they're structured, right? Just think about the people associated with that Ravens front office and the organization. And then think about the Eagles. I mean, it's like night and day.
Eric DeCosta.
They got some real
John Harbaugh.
Yeah, they got people with backbone over there. On the Eagles side, it just seems like they got people who are
yes men.
How can I put it? You're right about that, but also they care more about career advancement. It just seems like whatever's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, they know damn well what they're doing, but they just have their own agenda, and they're gonna do it the way they want to do it. Like you said something really key, right? They put the best people around their crown jewel.
You bet.
Lamar Jackson,
John Harbaugh, Todd Monken.
And what did they do for Jalen Hurts? They surround him with Brian Johnson.
No disrespect, Brian. You're not qualified to be around a $50 million quarterback.
Not yet. Not yet. How about this? He didn't earn that.
You know what, though, too? To Brian's also, to him, Jalen Hurts wasn't ready for that $50 million quarterback money. Because you know why? And I'm going to tell you this. I'm not saying he wouldn't eventually be. I'm saying they have rushed that development of him. They've rushed the money. They've rushed everything because they're projecting.
The money wouldn't even be an issue.
What he is.
The money wouldn't even be an issue because I don't really have a problem with the contract.
I do with 17 ball games because I don't know who he is.
The money wouldn't even be an issue really if they had a different view of how to develop a quarterback.
That goes hand in hand with that. What I'm saying, though, on the money, if you're going to give Jalen $50 million, you better bring in the top flight people that you could possibly have. Now, remember, when you bring a Todd Monken or you bring a Lovie Smith or you bring people like that, what immediately do they ask for? They ask for pieces that will help them develop that guy to the best of their ability. That means you're now playing in Howie Roseman's ballpark. Hey, I need this quarterback coach for him so that he can work on his skill set. Well, we don't know who he is. I don't fucking care. I need this guy. Hey, by the way, I need a third wideout so that we can do this maybe on bubble screens and this and that. And we need to do this. Hey, hang a minute. Whoa, wait a minute. Now you're playing in Howie's room. And so that becomes a problem. Coordinators want pieces to run their offense. You know what you're asking them to do when you come to Philly? Here's the pieces for you to run our offense, and you come in here, and here's the pieces. We want you to develop Jalen Hurts. So I'm going to develop Jalen Hurts with a first-year quarterback coach. Silsy's been in the building. Different roles, dude. If it affects a coach going from coordinator to head coach, it affects a guy being a quality control coach to being a quarterback coach, don't you think?
Right.
It all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and quarterback to OC. So yeah, like it's I get your logic. Like you can't just assume because a guy was there, he's going to know what to do in this new role. You can't assume that. And then
what we see now with Brian.
And then everything else you said prior to that, right? About it begs the question if you knew you had a guy in Jalen Hurts that you believed in, and you knew you wanted to pay him, you knew you wanted to invest in him, and you looked at him as your future, why not want to put the best people around him?
Control.
I'm glad you said that. Why does your need to control the situation trump what's best for your overall asset?
Credit and control.
You feel what I'm saying? Like because because it has to be ego, because you can't make the decisions Howie Roseman has made and then say he made them with zero ego. You know what I mean? Like you said, Todd Monken and who else they have over there, and like it just seems like they look at it as, look, we're building this thing. We all have our jobs. We're all going to get the credit we deserve. We all get Super Bowl rings at the end. You know what I'm saying?
Look at Denard Wilson, what he's done to the secondary.
Exactly.
We've been talking about it.
I think I honestly think Howie Roseman has began to I believe
Is it Howie unraveling or is it the Eagles unraveling?
Well, I think we got here because he started. I think we're even here in the first place because he started smelling himself. I think they all started smelling themselves, really. Especially Nick and Howie. They just felt like last year could be replicated, and that's idiotic. To believe that everybody having a career year the way they did last year, it was unheard of. 70+ sacks. Everybody had career years. You had like 15 Pro Bowlers or 10 Pro Bowls on your roster, however you want to slice it. I mean, it was just unheard of. And to think that defensive line could replicate what they did the year before, to think that you wouldn't need to continue to nurture Jalen Hurts' development, to think that you didn't need more experience because you were that close, to think that you can just front office your way through this 2023 season is insane. It's been miscalculation after miscalculation after miscalculation. I don't care what anyone says. I strongly believe that.
Doug Peterson and his firing is direct reflection of what is in the building today. In the fact that what you just said about Hurts, it's like the old thing that people used to say about paying a quarterback. Why would you pay a quarterback? And this is back in John Elway's day, when Elway had no line back in the day before Mike Shanahan showed up and Alex Gibb. When they had a $10 million quarterback and they had a 5-cent O-line, what's the point on paying the quarterback $10 million when you're not going anywhere because you haven't built the infrastructure of your team correctly? So what did they do? Mm-hmm. They fired Dan Reeves. They put Mike Shanahan in there. They got a running game going. They hired the greatest O-line coach in the NFL's history, and Alec Gibb, with his own blocking, and they went back-to-back Super Bowls. And there's a reason you put quality people in great teachers and coaches and evaluators. Remember something, dude. In the NFL, there's 46 guys on a roster active on Sundays. In college football, there's 100. Okay? You can put guys in and out, rotate guys. You've only got 46 dudes, Tone. 46 dudes to work with. Most of the time, the money, it hamstrings you into, once he's there, you got to play him. That's why when people are going, hey, we got to need a quarterback, so let's just move off of Bradbury. Man, not so fast, French fry. You ain't getting off that guy with that cap hit.
I mean, you can get off of him. But you gotta be willing to take that cap hit.
But that's Howie's wallet. So you gonna take money out of Howie's wallet?
Listen, he took a cap hit. How big was that Carson Wentz cap hit? 40 million?
38 million. That's a quarterback. But what they got in return was a first-round draft choice. Remember, it was a contingent pick with the Colts that it made it better that they were able to get a first-round draft choice. Was that pick Jalen Carter?
No, that wasn't Jalen Carter. That was I think they traded that pick for something to move up, or I can't remember, but nonetheless, that's a good point. It did soften the blow of that cap hit.
Now you ain't getting a 1 for Bradbury.
No, you'd be lucky to get a 5 or a 6. So, all right, let me ask you this then, because I want to talk constructively now. What's the next? Okay. I think this season we pretty much have an idea for what the outcome is going to be. What's the first move? Come the off season. What's the first move?
I think you have to have a fundamental philosophy.
If you're in control, what's the first move?
I think you're looking at it in the micro here. I think you have to look at it organizationally. And I think you have to do this. Why are we from year to year going from here to here? What is the issue? Are we valuing positions? I think they have to go back and look at this. Okay. And if you want to be, hey, let's be smart and not act like them. This is what I would do.
Right. That's what I mean.
Okay.
What would you do?
Well, here's what I would do. Okay. We're fundamentally not strong at drafting linebackers, and we're fundamentally not strong at drafting corners. Okay. Edge rushers, too. Running backs, we're kind of decent. We're not great. We're okay. We're great at tight ends. We're great at O-line. We're great at D-tackle. I would say this. Let's draft tackles, all offense, defense, later round running backs. I would look at potentially a third or fourth round in the draft. But then I would look at, okay, how many draft picks do I have this coming year? 12? Something like that? It's like 12 picks, right? I would say, hey, Carolina, since, get this, you got a 26-year-old defensive end they've been dying to move. I would say this to them. Brandon Graham, he's out. I would do this to you, Tone. Okay, Brian Burns. Carolina, look what they shit a brick on. To move up to get Bryce Young, Chicago now has the #1 overall pick from Carolina. And they now are the #1 pick. They don't even get the benefit of having a first-round pick now.
They have 9 first-round picks.
How many?
9.
You have, okay. Carolina needs equity for a new coach.
Right.
Brian Burns, how much is that going to cost? I'm not saying get him. I'm asking, how much will that cost me? The Devin White thing, I would take a look at that and go like this. I need an experienced 26-year-old captain of a Super Bowl winning team. I could have a linebacker in the room like Roquan Smith. Hey, dude, if it's good enough for the Ravens, it's got to be good enough.
And that's my thing. Like,
it's got to be good enough for the Eagles.
Why does Howie Roseman in this team, this organization, believe that they're just above the linebacker position? What is the? And that has to be ego.
And again, this is what I would do. I would look at Devin Smith and go, pay him between 15 and 20. If I could have a guy in the building for 10 years, don't you understand, Tone? Every year he starts and every year he's productive, you get the value of the contract. Like, look at Hassan Reddick. That $15 million, do you think he's overperformed that contract? No question. 27 sacks in 33 games. I'm sorry, dude. Right. That's your problem that you're dropping him in coverage. Right. When he rushes the passer, he's everything I paid for.
Right. And Devin White, you bring him in, he's helping you in the passing game and in run defense. So
absolutely.
Why not invest in a guy like
your tackle play too?
And he's going to solidify your tackle play. He's going to make sure everyone's where they're supposed to be. You're not going to see you're barely going to see missteps in that defense.
And he can cover tight ends.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's you're bringing in this multi-dimensional piece that they keep trying to ignore.
Instead of piecemealing garbage cans, why don't you get a true Roquan Smith type ball player in the building?
And the heart of your defense. The heart of your defense.
If you don't even want to do that, maybe a guy like that, that's productive, like that, and maybe not as expensive. I like duplicating what dudes look like. If a dude plays like Roquan, he's in a good system, he's in a great organization, they develop players, I'll get a guy that kind of looks like him.
Right.
Here's another position.
The off-brand, right?
Yes. Right. Like the knockoff Viagra pills, like something like that. That's what I want. I want knockoff Viagra pills. I don't want $100 pills. I want to get them $2 pills.
Oh my
Here's
goodness.
something else I'd do. Okay. Here's something else I would do. I'd go to Arizona. Hey, how's that Buda Baker guy doing?
He's a Pro Bowler this year, so the prices went up.
Well, guess what? My defense went down.
Hey, I'm with you.
Okay, so you start looking and they're going, well, wait a minute, Sills, we got to pay the quarterback $50 million. Oh, hey, you want to play big ball money? You want to play in the ballpark here? Okay, well, shit, you got to pay your quarterback. You can't rob Peter to pay Paul and think you're going to be effective. And this goes to what Jeff Kerr says about the swings
and also you got to be willing to take risk. They don't take enough financial risk. And what I mean is, like, it seems like, there's nothing wrong with thinking, 5-6 years ahead, but sometimes I feel like they live too much in the future. Sometimes I feel like they need to really lock in on and commit to themselves. Okay, we're investing in the next 3 years, and we'll figure it out after that. I feel like every time a new year comes around, they're thinking 4 or 5. Like Howie Roseman is always trying to think about the next thing
The money.
instead of yes.
It's not the players.
And sometimes, and like you said, just how you can get too caught up in the macro, and you got to focus on the macro. Sometimes Howie Roseman gets too caught up on the macro and doesn't focus enough on the micro, and that's leading to them not investing in that position. And why there's so many ebbs and flows. Like I think I like they're so concerned with trying to manage this checkbook, and it's like, yo, are you trying to win Lombardi trophies or not?
No,
you got to make your mind up. Like you like this city cares more about just being relevant. This city cares more about just being in the playoffs. And the Eagles want to win Lombardi trophies. It's almost like
this is what makes it frustrating.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating.
It is. This is what I told you what I would do. Now, this is what I think they'll do. They're going to go into the offseason and they're going to make the micro changes at coordinators. And there's going to be an overhaul. No matter how far they go, there's going to be an overhaul because there's too much of a stink that's in the building, and the players will feel better that at least there's an effort to change and get a deodorant inside the locker room. You see right now, Tone, they need to have a new deodorant in the locker room. There's a stench in there. And what they need to do is they're going to bring in Frank. Now, depending on what Frank's financial situation is, he may just not want to come back ever. Right. Okay? He just may never want to come. He's got $65 million now. I mean, that's going to be quite a putt for you. I mean, I talked to my friend Ed Ogeron. Ed Ogeron's been offered numerous coaching jobs. LSU gave him $42 million out the door. He goes, Sills, you think I'm coaching again? I went, I go, Coach, you're going to be chasing skirts till the day you die. and I just can't see that guy ever coaching again unless it's the right situation. So there's that dynamic there. And plus, Frank's worked for two of the shittiest owners in the history of the league. I mean, if I'm an owner, I wouldn't have a problem looking at Frank as being an – remember, you're not asking Frank to come in and build your team. You're asking Frank to come in and build your offense. And that's one thing he's great at. Remember, Shane Steichen worked for him, okay? He's one of the guys he developed. He developed Sirianni. He developed all them guys. Gannon and all them guys worked for him at one time or another. Those guys were all in it. Mike McCoy is another guy down in Jacksonville. Anyway, here's what I think they'll do. They'll bring in coordinators. They'll bring in people that the players in the locker room will feel better about. But still, and they'll still keep their fundamental formula. My question will be this. Will the analytics department, will the owner change any philosophy on how they value positions? Now, here's the thing with DeAndre Swift. So DeAndre Swift just made himself unavailable for the Eagles with their philosophy that they have had. He is the most.
He's not coming back.
He has no future in Philadelphia unless they change.
Unless what?
Well, unless they have a philosophical change at that position. Because here's what, you know how much money he's going to cost you? How much money do you think that guy's going to get on the open market on being a Pro Bowl running back and being the second best running back in the NFC to McCaffrey?
Well, right now McCaffrey is making
18.
He's making 15 a year on average.
Okay,
on average.
About half.
And then you have guys. Then you have guys like Saquon, and you have guys like Alvin Kamara. I don't think he's making. He's not making 12.
He's not making 12.
But that's where I was actually going to say. I think he's going to, because I'll put it this way: Miles Sanders is making 6.1, 6.2. Right. I think, depending on the market too. But market independent. I think he's going to make around. He can command maybe $7 to $8 million a year.
Okay, historically, that's not happening. Now, do you want to bring a guy like that back, or do you think that you're quality enough to go out in the market? And are you going to hire who? Dalvin Cook? I still think Dalvin Cook's got something left, but are you going to gamble that you're going to go out and find a guy who's going to put up 1,000 yards and 50 catches for you again? And again, Tone, here's the Jeff Kerr comment. The inconsistency is you gamble on production with your risks that you go out in the free agent market with. And you're gambling on whether you're going to hit or miss. Last year was so unprecedented with all the career years that this year you have guys, again, not having career years that were the free agents.
Do the Eagles gamble more than any other team?
The inconsistency in his tenure as being GM.
Let me ask you this. Does Howie Roseman gamble more than any contending GM that you could think about in the NFL? Any out of the contenders, the teams that are really relevant, does he gamble the most on production?
He has to gamble
instead of investing on what he knows.
He does, but he has to, because you know why? The inability to draft positions that they need reflects that they have to be more productive in pro personnel. Let me look. The linebacker position, the corner position, the safety position have theoretically been a disaster in his time. It's been a disaster. And so what happens when you miss on Jalen Reagor? You go in free agency, or no, you go and make a trade for AJ. That was a stroke of genius because Tennessee was underutilizing him there. That was a good move. But AJ was a good player. No one thought that he would elevate. Great move, Howie. But then guess what Howie does? At the other end of that spectrum is Jalen Reagor. You could have had Justin Jefferson for 3 years on a rookie contract that money could have went into the defensive side of the ball. Instead, the last 2 years, you've paid $40 million. That $40 million could have been spent in linebackers and in safeties, and you're on a rookie deal where you're paying a guy $1.5 million. Instead, now you're paying 40 on a free agent. AJ is worth the money, but AJ costs the team its future in building the roster with the $40 million.
I'm willing to say Howie cost the team with his inability to evaluate the position. AJ, I think that's the root of it.
The money of the $40 million that they've had to pay AJ the last 2 years, bro, it could have went into linebackers and safeties. It could have been, you could have kept AJ.
You can't forget you draft Smitty. So it seems like he's always
on a rookie deal.
Right.
You're paying him nothing.
Doesn't always seem like he's playing. Doesn't always seem like he's on mop-up duty. Like Howie, he's always cleaning up something. He's always trying to.
He doesn't have an edge rusher, so what does he do? He lands on Reddick. Okay? He lands on Reddick. And now here's my question. If I'm Hassan Reddick, man, do I really want to come? Now, look, I probably don't want to leave because you know why? Every other place I've been, they didn't know how to use me. And when you're dropping me in coverage, boy, I'll tell you, it's the money, Tone, when you miss on the linebackers. Or you miss. Here, look at Howie. That guy they cut. Who was the guy they cut? They drafted in the 3rd round a couple years ago.
Davion Taylor.
Okay, think about this. So you missed on him, and you passed on TJ's money.
Yep.
Look what you've lost. You lost draft pick in the 3rd, and development, and you didn't want to pay 7. And then what did you do throughout the year? You paid 2.5 here, 1.5 here, 4.5 there, 5.5 there. It comes out to $7 million to me. You could have kept the goddamn guy, and you could have covered the loss at the 3rd round that you had to cut the guy. Think of, again, the fact that you missing these drafts financially and economically affects the building of your team for being consistent. That's why you were talking earlier about the Niners. The Niners have a Pro Bowler at every level: D-line, linebacker, and defensive back. There's a Pro Bowler at every level.
Yeah, when you built
through the draft.
When you're not capable of building through the draft, you actually put yourself in more of a financial bind because you're forced to pay. You're actually forced to overpay for guys in free agency.
Who's your core guys on defense?
At this point, the core guys on defense are Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and
wow,
Fletcher's on the back end. So I don't know if should I count.
You know what Tony Dungy told me?
He's on the back end.
You have to have a core group of guys to build around when you go out and work for free agency. His core group of guys in Tampa that they built through the draft, different because salary cap wasn't, so it's different. I get it. But you had Sapp, Brooks, Lynch. You had Chidi Hanatu. You had all these guys that you had, Mike Allstott. You had guys that you had built through the draft that were a core 7 group of guys. Then you went out and got a Simeon Rice. Then you went out and got a Hardy Nickerson. Then you went out, and by the way, Rondé Barber was part of that core group. When you have all those kind of core guys, you can go out and sprinkle free agents in. The Eagles don't build around foundation on the defensive side. That's why you
on the defense side, right? And that's their weakness. I mean,
but when you're not balancing your rosters, Tone, when you're not, it's not a balanced roster.
Yeah, you drafted Fletcher Cox, you drafted Jalen Carter, you drafted Jordan Davis, you drafted Josh Sweat. But that's years ago, right? But I want to focus on like the main, like the future, right?
But those guys aren't the core guys.
Who's your future? Anymore. And the future is Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter.
Yep.
And I honestly don't
know.
No
one else.
And I honestly don't know what Josh Sweat's future holds beyond his current contract.
I'm not giving up on him.
No. I'm a Josh Sweat guy. I just don't know what So I would keep
him around.
I would keep him.
I mean,
I'm a Josh Sweat guy.
Doing anything with him.
Yeah, I think Josh Sweat. People might think I'm crazy for this, but I think Josh Sweat.
I think he's a Pro Bowl talent.
Has a higher ceiling than Hassan Reddick. People might think I'm crazy for saying that.
No.
I think he has a higher ceiling.
Nope. I think they've worn him out.
I agree. Okay. I've been talking about that for the past couple of weeks.
I think they've worn him out. Now, look, should he get criticism for not showing up and getting sacks? Yes. Okay. The whole unit should be. But then again, accountability comes in. Hey, they didn't prepare these. Here's another thing.
Real quick.
Coaches. The defensive coaches did not prepare these guys, Tone.
I'm glad you said that. Let's
the amount of reps that they were going to have to take this year.
Exactly.
And those soft-ass practices that they had, they needed to be in better shape and they needed to be in better conditioning if they knew that they were going to push these guys past their rep mark.
Yes, that's another issue. When you build your team, it's kind of like the Georgia Bulldog issue, right? When you build your team based off of the concept of rotating, when you build your defense based off of that, you have to make sure you can sustain that. Because if you don't have the personnel to rotate in, now you're putting your guys in a bind because you didn't condition them or prep them or put them in a situation where they're going to have to play 60, 70 reps a game. You didn't condition them for that. You never prepped them for that. It's a reason Josh Sweat has never played this amount of snaps before because he's always been a part of a rotation.
Howie got the equity when 22 guys lined up in the Super Bowl and played because they didn't practice that way. 10-1 and the 22 healthy guys created equity for him. But you got to remember something with Roseman that we now see his MO is. You gauge Howie Roseman on not what he's done. You gauge Howie Roseman on a year-to-year basis because every single thing he does is not for the future.
That's why.
Every year he does, according to Jeff Kurt, and he's right. Howie Roseman is a year-to-year general manager, and his teams reflect it.
That's why you have a fan base divided on Howie Roseman every year. Because if Howie Roseman was a great GM, it'd be unequivocal. It wouldn't be a debate.
Howie Roseman is nowhere near Ozzie Newsome, and even to the extent John Lynch.
Every year there's a debate about if Howie Roseman is a good GM or not. Every year it changes every single year, and I think Eagles fans can attest to this. It changes every single year. You bring guys in and you have a philosophy or a method to the madness about how you want to use your defensive line, but you don't position the roster in a way to sustain what you're trying to do. This defensive line was designed to rotate, and that started in the Jim Schwartz, Doug Peterson era. They were rotating defensive linemen. They were one of the first teams in this new era of the NFL to start really rotating D linemen all the time, keeping them fresh with the Chris Longs and the Timmy Jerrigans, the Fletcher Cox, who else? The Derek Barnett's, BG, Timmy Jerrigan, Benny Logan. It was a bunch of different guys. Vinny Curry. They were rotating guys around that time. They had a lot of bodies, so that was how they won. But now they want to try to keep that same philosophy, but don't have the personnel to sustain it. You move on from Derek Barnett, knowing you rotating guys. It didn't make sense, and you don't really replace them. You just go get a safety in Kevin Byard. So again, that's why a guy like Josh Sweat is moving the way he's moving. That's why Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, they come from a rotational defense.
That's right. Howie Roseman went, instead of replacing a pilot in an airplane, he replaced the pilot with a stewardess.
You know what I'm saying? It's like nothing's wrong about the guys. They're talented, but did you draft them keeping fully in mind that these guys have played in a rotation and their motor is not going to be as high?
Way of looking at building a team. It's really not a football view. He doesn't have a football view like Ozzie Newsome does. You know, Ozzie gets.
You know what I think? I think he just looks at this thing. You're right. I don't think he has a football bone in his body. I think he just looks at this thing as numbers, production, name, school. He's not really getting a feel for what situation these guys are coming from.
Oh, we start with the bank account.
Always.
Yes. All right, Tom. This has been great.
Of course, man. It's always fun. I appreciate you.
You bet, man. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, my friend. We're going to talk to Jason Cole, too, by the way. We're going to get his talk on Eric Allen's chances on making the Hall of Fame. I put his name on my panel list. I put Eric Allen on there. They're now voting. We'll know in a couple weeks who makes the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Jason Cole, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. An NFL insider will join us next. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the